ever feel like you want to quit, just tell yourself you're going to quit tomorrow. Can't find a single video that mentions this, and I'm going to tell you right away, it's of your core value that's going to be questioned. No heads up anywhere, but oftentimes we adopt people's definition of success and joy and fulfillment. That's just so silly. It is so silly. Don't come for me on those first 6 months, because those are the hardest months. So don't be like, oh, you lied, this sucks. Hi, I'm Eliani. I moved to Japan with my husband and my 2 dogs about 2.5 years ago, and I was very pregnant. My daughter was born in Japan, and we've been here ever since. We actually lived in California prior to moving to Japan, and I was born in Brazil. My husband is Dominican, so we have a mixture of cultures and how those different cultures impacted us as adults. So I'm sharing 3 very unexpected things that happened that no one talks about. I can't find a single video that mentions this, and I'm going to tell you right away, it's water. Have you seen a video that talks about the water and what it does to you? No, I can't find it. No one told me. There's no heads up anywhere. What I'm talking about is the water in whatever country you move to is likely going to affect your hair and or your skin. So for me, the water in Japan is very drying, so it dries my skin out. It dries my hair out. My hair also falls with a lot more frequency, which sounds scary, but is actually very normal. The second biggest unexpected thing that no one talks about is the way your body is going to process the new food that you're consuming in this new country. So the way other countries farm, vastly different from the United States. So for example, there are certain fruits that I eat in the United States that I have an allergic reaction to. The roof of my mouth gets really itchy. And then I'll eat that same fruit in a different country like Brazil or in Japan, and I have 0 problems with it. So I think it's how things are farmed. Even the eggs in Japan, the egg yolk has like a vibrant color compared to the eggs in the United States. And that is based on what the chickens are being fed at certain farms in the United States, which is primarily corn. So you get that like pastel yellow yolk color that you don't see in Japan. The third most unexpected thing that I feel is the most crucial that no one really talks about is your perception of the United States is going to change. If you talk to anyone that's lived outside of the US, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's a real thing. Your definition of success and fulfillment is going to change as well. That is a huge one. You're now a new product of a new environment. You're witnessing people find fulfillment and joy in different ways than what you've grown accustomed to watching. So I'm gonna dive into that a little bit more, because that one is really truly the most life-altering one. The US has a very particular perception of success and what makes a person successful, and it's usually based on income and status in terms of like what you do for a living. I think mentally we like to think of ourselves, especially once you reach a certain age, we like to think of ourselves as like that's who I am, you know, like that's my personality, those are my core values, that's gonna stick with me until I die. Like, and then you go to a different country and you live within that culture and you experience yourself and those perceptions that you have of yourself and your life within that new environment. That is going to change. It doesn't mean that you as a person, you're gonna suddenly become this other human being, but there is a big part of your core values that's going to be questioned. It's not really a negative thing. I think for me anyways, it's been amazing. Like I can't imagine not having gone through these different experiences of living in other countries for long periods of times, because that really does make a difference. And being the same person, like that would feel wrong. It would feel wasteful. Like that was a waste of an opportunity. If you are seeking change, best way to receive that change is through action, and moving to another country is like the ultimate action, right? It's the ultimate discomfort. Like you're going to go through changes, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. Right before we moved to Japan, I was a VP for a tech company. I was VP for the design and marketing department. Very, very proud of that moment. I worked super hard. I was very much like a horse, career horse, where nothing else mattered. I did not feel necessarily guilty for missing life events from people that I love, and like just thinking back on that now, I feel like it's just so and I feel horrible about it. But to be completely honest, in those moments I was like, I gotta work. Like, I gotta do this. Like, I have to put in these hours. I have to go to this work trip. I have to miss this. I can't just drop everything, because then I'm not gonna reach my, you know, goal, which was climbing up the corporate ladder, even though I was in a creative industry. That hierarchy of life and success and position within that spectrum of success is very much ingrained in the American culture, and I was for sure sucked into that. So even prior to moving to Japan, knowing I was going to move to Japan and I don't need no car that's fancy because we are moving, I was shopping for a Porsche. I was like, yeah, I need this. And then prior to that, I was like, I need to live in a certain place. I need to dress a certain way, because it was already difficult for me to be taken seriously in a position of leadership and an executive position as a woman, as a brown woman, and as someone who was like younger than a board member. And then you add in another layer of like, and I'm driving, you know, a hoopty, like, and in my mind, I was like, that means that I'm responsible, that I'm great with money. I'm going to responsibly take care of this multi-million-dollar budget. But you get sucked into the mindset of like,
how successful is this person if they're driving a hoopty, if they're wearing the same outfit every day, if they don't have designer things, and they have 3 roommates? Like, how successful are you? How are you going to lead this company and this corporation into success if your personal life doesn't reflect that?
You really do get sucked in, and then you start to realize, and you peel everything back, and you're kind of like at your bare bones, and you realize like, this is stupid. I can't believe the amount of importance and time, sorry, that was my dog, the amount of importance and time, resources, energy, my mental health that I like really dedicated to making somebody else money. You know, just so I could feel like, yes, I did that. You know, like, yeah, that makes me who I am, because that was my title. Like, that is my purpose within this, you know, career life and career journey. And because I dedicated so much of my life to it, I really took that on as like a big part of my identity. And even though I'm still proud of that moment because of everything that I had to go through to achieve those goals, I still feel like completely disconnected from that mindset. I'm still the same person at my core, but my projection of my life journey is not based on what am I doing for my career. So it's not based on like what is gonna be my answer when I meet someone and it says, hi, how are you? What do you do? You know what I mean? Like, that's just so silly. It is so silly. Now that I look back on it, it's wild. So all of that to say, I hate to sound super cheesy, but oh my God, it's almost like enlightening. Like, I know that sounds really dramatic, but I promise you, it is the ultimate truth. When you see yourself going through something that you thought was difficult, you're gonna change. When you see yourself surviving and thriving in an environment that you had never once imagined, you're going to change. When you are in a new environment where everyone around you is not like you, they don't look like you, they don't sound like you, they didn't grow up like you, you're going to change, you're going to grow. And I think that's the ultimate gift from living abroad. Even if you hate it, even if you miss home every single day and you cry every day, it's the gift of an opportunity to challenge yourself in a way that you just cannot be challenged living in your comfort bubble. That bubble is great, feels soft and snuggly, but it's also restricting, and it doesn't allow you to see things for yourself because you're enveloped in it. And there's nothing wrong with going back. I think the statistics for people that move abroad, a large percentage of them end up ultimately moving back home. And that doesn't mean that, oh, see, that was a terrible idea. Maybe for some people that was a terrible idea, but I don't think that it means that. It just means they achieved what they wanted to achieve out of that situation. And if they felt like, oh, I really miss home and I want to go back, you go back. I promise you're still going to be different. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be the same person, similarly to how you should not be the same person you were 5, 10, 15 years ago. You would be surprised at the things that you felt like, this is who I am and nothing's going to change that about me. Like, it's going to. You just haven't put yourself in an environment that challenges that. If you don't want that, then don't do it. My point is that if that is what you're searching for, I would say that's the best way to go about it. Oh, but yeah, like you need money to move abroad, like, and I want to just grow. That's ridiculous. That doesn't seem attainable. Of course not. Like, I'm just saying that if that is an option for you, take it, do it. It's terrifying. It's gonna be a transition. It's going to be difficult in different ways for different people. Yes, but it's 100,000% worth it. Are you kidding me? I would do it 15 more times, and I did it during the pandemic, pregnant with my first child. It was a huge shift in so many different ways, and it was very difficult for me to survive that transition because it was not something I was actually mentally prepared for, no matter how highly I thought of my personal strength. And I still do feel like I feel myself in terms of like I'm a strong person, but there's certain moments in life that really challenge you. But I am the type of person that seeks those challenges. I had other options, but I ended up choosing the hardest one because I knew that if I stayed within the path of my comfort zone and my bubble, I was just going to be a different person. Something just felt off of about how I was living in California. It felt like I could just see myself like prioritizing the wrong things that, you know, 5-10 years prior to that, I just wouldn't have cared about. And so I started questioning, like, why is this so important to me? You know, like, and then we had talked about starting a family and all of that. I'm like, what kind of parent do I want to be? Is it somebody who is putting so much weight into somebody else's hands of how important I am based on how much money I'm making this corporation? Like, just like, even saying that out loud sounds so gross, but like, I'm just being honest, that's really how I perceived myself and my self-worth. Those are the key words, is like that self-worth. And I knew something felt off. But I was such a focused workhorse. And I still am a very focused being. Like when I have a goal in mind, like I'm gonna see it through. And I love that about myself. But that goal, it wasn't serving me anymore. So I felt like the only way that I am going to be challenged enough and quickly, right? Because I felt like, I don't got time for this. I want to have this baby. I need to see things from a different lens and like now. So that felt like I need to go and remove myself from this environment and remove myself from this culture that's feeding into my ideas of what success is. This is not about shitting on California. This is not about shitting on the United States or American culture. You're interested in seeing yourself in a different way. Getting out of your comfort zone is the way to do it. Maybe you don't need to move all the way to Japan. Maybe you just need to move from the East Coast to the West Coast. Maybe you just need to get out of your hometown and move to the next town over. Or maybe you just need to move out of your family's house and see what it's like and like fail miserably. I've also done that. And come back home. I've also done that. And each time, I might get emotional. Each time you go through those little moments, they become stepping stones in your life. Do you know what I mean? Like they become those little challenges where you're like, that seems wild. Like I'm like very uncomfortable about the idea of like moving without any money or without having a job lined up. Like, what am I gonna do? That seems so silly and wild and irresponsible. Like once you do it and you see yourself in that scenario that you thought was wild, you're gonna look back. I promise you're gonna look back on it and you're gonna be like, it was not that serious, or it was. And I have like a culmination of those stories that have led me to this point. A lot of them, I would say 80% of them, I remember prior to diving into those challenges and scenarios that made me uncomfortable. I remember being like, this is like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. And then afterwards I was like, that was not that serious. These challenges that we spend countless times and nights stressing about and how we're gonna do and how we're gonna perform in those scenarios, I would say 80% of them were just not that serious. And then it's the 20% one that you're like, that's hard, I can't even imagine. Or the ones that you didn't even, they were so challenging that you didn't even have the imagination to think of them until they happen. But You know, human beings, we're incredible creatures. I feel like that's just how we're built. We're built to survive, and we're built to find creative ways to get through things. And our brain is such a huge force that once it's in survival mode, you'll be amazed at the things that you can get through because you have no other option. Like, I don't ever mean to take away from people's struggles and personal challenges, and I'm not talking about, you know, diseases that don't have no cures. Of course, those are different scenarios. I'm merely speaking from different stages of life, and as we grow and have the privilege to grow through those different stages of life. That's what I'm like referring to, those challenges and growing pains. That is a huge privilege. My parents are immigrants, I'm an immigrant. Trust me, I know the difference. And that's not what I'm talking about, because a lot of those times, those people are strong and stronger than any person you can imagine because they're forced in those situations. And you have to be strong, like you don't have another option. So that's a different scenario. I'm talking about the scenario where the option of leaving and that privilege of having that option, and you're second guessing it yourself. I'm just saying. I just want to say that I promise you, you're gonna thrive in them. You're gonna, even if you don't thrive, like you will get through it, and then you're gonna look back on it and you're gonna feel like such a badass. You're gonna feel so proud of yourself. And I wish that for everyone, that feeling of like, my self-worth is based on things that make me a mother, why I am the way that I am with my child, why I am the way that I am with my partner, the way that I am with myself, and how I talk to myself, how I see myself, has no attachment whatsoever to outside resources or like outside opinions beyond the people that I choose to have in my life, that I love, that love me back. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds so simple, but like so many of us live putting so much weight and importance on things that just don't matter. Like, I know this is not some breakthrough concept, but like, let it be a reminder, because I needed that reminder. And unfortunately, I felt like I couldn't just tell myself that. I felt like I needed to live through it and challenge myself in a new environment, in a new country, in order to like believe it at my core. And looking back on it, like I feel for that girl, and I feel for her putting all that importance on something that just is silly. It doesn't matter. So all of that to say, please do it. Move, you know, but keep in mind the water's probably gonna fuck you up a little bit. You're probably gonna get a stomach ache through eating the food. I hope this was helpful. I hope you feel inspired. I hope you feel a little less scared. I really do. I hope like whoever is considering it, because I get so many messages of like, oh, hats off to you, like that's wild, like I could never do that. I'm like, I'm not like some unicorn, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not some like special person. So when I get messages like that, it upsets me, because I'm like, oh, like you're already seeing yourself outside of that possibility, because you're telling me like, oh, hats off to you, like I could never do what you did. So you're already perceiving yourself as not being capable, which is silly. That's stupid. How do you know? How do you know you're incapable of doing that? You have to do it. Like, you have to go through it to find out. And you're already limiting yourself by saying you can't. Are they real scenarios, or are they like scenarios that are camouflaged, but really they're excuses that you're telling yourself? If you really want to do this, and I'm assuming you do because you're searching for these types of videos, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. You can always revert back. You can always go back home, you know? And if you can't, you're going to create a new home. I have the home that I have within myself. It's a better version. Like, I definitely upgraded. So I want you to upgrade. I want you to try it. Don't come for me on those first 6 months, because those are the hardest months. So don't be like, oh, you lied, this sucks, and I'm leaving. Okay, well, you're leaving right before it gets good. Like, see it through. Like, really give it a chance, and then make whatever decisions you need to make for yourself that you're gonna feel good about. There was a quote of, if you ever feel, it was a Navy SEAL, if you ever feel like you wanna quit, just tell yourself you're gonna quit tomorrow. And that's like the realest thing, right? Because once tomorrow comes, if you haven't quit, you can tell yourself, I'll quit the next day. it really does help minimize that overwhelming feeling of like this feels never ending, and just simplify it to a day. And then you get through that day, and then you get through the next day, and then if you feel like, okay, today's the day I want to quit, then quit. And it's okay. Like, you're not a failure for that. Don't let your pride hold you in an environment that's not making you happy, because that defeats the purpose, right? Like, that's not why you left. You should do it. You can always go back home. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's okay if you don't have this huge epiphany within, 36 days of living in a new environment. Also, be realistic with yourself. Sometimes it's the environment for sure, but it's also like putting yourself out there. Because I know I have met so many people, so many Americans in Japan that have been here longer than I have, and they hate it. And every time I ask them, well, why do you hate it? And they're like, oh, I miss Target, or oh, I miss Michael's, or I miss Costco. And I was like, girl, there's, I get it, but there's stores that are kind of similar. And come to find out, they've never seeked those things out. Like, if Michael's is what brings you joy, find a Michael's. Find a different version of Michael's. Find a different version of that joy. You know what I mean? Like, but then if you don't even try to find it, and you're miserable because of it, like, you're not really seeing the opportunity all the way through. Right? So you made the big step, moved, you've gotten through the hardest part, which is getting up and doing it. And now you're in this new place, and you've locked yourself in your apartment for 30 days. You can't expect get through things and challenges if you're like locking yourself up in your house, right? You have to like put yourself out there, especially in a new culture. It's really, really hard, but nothing is harder than doing this without the internet, which my parents did, and I remind myself that all the time. Nothing is harder than doing this when someone's forcing me to, and nothing is harder than doing this when my family back home is unwell and depending on me. Like, we are in a position of privilege, so for you to hold yourself back from something that you wanted doesn't make sense. So leave your house, even if it's a small task, take your phone with you, use Google Translate, you can do it. Just make sure that once you're there, see it through and see yourself thriving in it and see yourself getting through it. Like, I promise you, it's so empowering, and it becomes, like I said, stepping stones in your life that lead you to this like ultimate version of yourself. It's like literally a video game where you go and you fight these little baby bosses to get to the ultimate boss. I like to think that I am not just existing. I'm not on cruise control. I'm like actively seeking out opportunities to be a better version of myself, but also opportunities to seek joy and happiness and new definitions of that. I just want to make sure that my definition of success and happiness is the right one for me. It doesn't take away from anyone else's definition, because that's their life, but oftentimes we adopt people's definition of success and joy and fulfillment and what your life should look like and where you should be at within that stage based on somebody else's definition of that. And I think that's the ultimate mistake. And I was making that mistake. So seek those opportunities out to grow and change your perception for yourself. Even if you're a mother like myself and you have babies that kind of depend on you, it's hard for us to take away from those moments with them and reinvest it back into ourselves, because we have extreme mom guilt over everything. But just see that as an opportunity to be a better mother for them and a better version of yourself. There's nothing better than being fulfilled and happy within yourself, because then you have the energy and the capacity to spill that love and give more of yourself and a better version of yourself to your children and to your partner, to your family, to yourself. It's just like a cycle. Let me know, leave a comment. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them as best as I can. Ask different people from different walks of life. If you're somebody like myself who likes to be as prepared as possible, do your research, ask as many opinions from different types of people at different stages and different walks of life. So don't ask only that person that looks like you and came from where you came from, and your small bubbles of comfort look vastly similar. You see what I'm saying? Ask different people, because then you're getting different perspectives, and that doesn't mean that you should base your decision on other people's opinions, because it's still their own story. Ask different people so that you can get a more neutral overall picture of what this experience might be like, and then see yourself within those different scenarios. Okay, so yeah, so shoot me a comment, send me a message. I'm happy to answer as best as I can. Okay, good luck. Also, no one talks about taxes as an immigrant. If you're American, yeah, you gotta pay those taxes. Doesn't matter where you live, forever. I'm not obviously here to give any tax legal advice. I'm just bringing that up because it's something that surprisingly a lot of us kind of overlook, and we get really caught up in the details and like, where am I gonna live? And what's my car situation gonna be like? I need to get my license. What's the visa to resident? Like all of that process, we get so caught up in it that it's definitely overlooked, and it's a big detail to consider. You're gonna end up potentially paying double taxes. So in Brazil, for instance, there's no tax agreement with the United States. So if you ever decide to move to Brazil and you're an American citizen and you didn't renounce your citizenship with the US, then you're gonna be likely paying double taxes. So you pay income tax to the United States of America for whatever income you have abroad, whatever money you're making in a new country. Even if you don't live there ever again, you still have to pay up. And then same thing with Brazil, because let's say you're obviously living and working there, you have to pay income taxes to that country that you reside in. So there's like a bunch of little details with that, depending on your income. It's changed for 2022 due to the inflation. I want to say it's around 120,000. So if you're making less than that, there's some exemptions to that tax rule. But like I said, I'm not like here to give any tax advice. It's just something that when I brought it up online, a lot of people were like, holy shit, I didn't even consider researching that because I just didn't think I would have to. And we're like, yeah, but how would they know? Like, how would they know? And they're gonna know. They know. Yeah, they know. All the banks, they talk to each other. So it's essentially like when you work for an employer and they are obligated to inform the government of what their employees were paid. So for tax purposes, the same thing with banks abroad and in foreign countries. They're gonna end up telling the government more or less, hey, you know, one of your citizens is here and they have X amount in the bank, so what's up? Something along those lines, right? I should probably stop talking about this because like I said, I'm not like an expert in any case, but please do your research prior to moving to that country, because that's a very important detail and it's not something you want to be surprised by.